Okay, so so I mentioned this a while ago of all the pointing out of evidence regarding my own assets being used. Well, here's some more evidence furthering what I've said and some of these comments I've mentioned by Blue Squares Games' own 3D artist Robin Oliver. I'm bringing you up again for a simple reason. You'll see in a minute why. Now, to begin with, this is the same person who claimed that my assets were not only my own, but his and Capcom's, and he continues to remain on that opinion. So let's see what we see, okay? So the following images show that he did indeed use a lot of my assets only a few months ago, mentioning, yes, you guessed it, in the alpha build of this fan game, so what you can see is simple. So for example, here is the trailer Robin released a few months ago. Notice how the buildings seen are actually mine. And here is my actual message to prove it. But of course, not mine at all. It's apparently Capcom's. I'll explain a bit more about that familiar thing in a bit as well. This is another one of the I've kind of proven it is mine all the time. This one is actually showing the bar seen in the boulevard in the original game, and yet it is being used by Robin again, who claims this is Capcom's work. Yes, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's not like I have a time machine or anything. I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute as well. Again, I back this up, so if I decide to remove it, I will just re-upload it and have the evidence there to prove it. Now, despite what Robin and his team at Blue Square Games say, these are my assets used in their alpha build, ones that were rejected and ones they claim are inferior to their work, when in fact is my work anyway. Okay, so for example, here's Robin saying that my assets aren't mine, but are Capcom's, despite the original Resident Evil 3 not having 3D assets apart from the characters, the doors, the enemies. They're the only ones that had 3D geometry. As we all know, the games use pre-rendered environments, so like I mentioned before, and I mentioned previously in months, unless I have a time travel device and stole these from Capcom back in 1999, there is no way in hell to obtain them anymore, because as we know, Capcom themselves have said they've lost these assets. So in other words, these only exist because I built them. Not through Capcom's archives, not by having a time travel device, but me actually building them. The streams have proven that more enough as it is. And of course, this little one. So here he berates my work, calls it inferior, but uses it anyway to create a totally inaccurate building mesh that won't fit Boutique Street. It's using the same assets, it's using the same mesh data, and it's still using the same texture. But apparently, he's not using my assets at all. They're not using them at all anyway, despite the fact he shows them using my assets anyway. It's kind of a stupid bullshit statement, isn't it? And as you can see in this image, this is taken from my own assets. Funny, isn't it, how not only have I got my stream showing me building these from scratch, but these are also mine. Just very funny, isn't it? Now the buildings, the bookshop and the coffee shop, I already showed these in the previous video, but here they are still used and claimed to be made by Robin. No, let me rephrase that. Rebuilt because my inferior models are crap compared to his. Yeah, I'm sure they are. Okay. Now, the main problem with Robin is simply this. He's very aggressive in this stream, calling me an American, which as you can tell I'm not. I'm British, just for your information. This stream he created, by the way, was in response to my original stream I did about how he was denying me credit and how my assets were still being used. This was his way of proving that he wasn't, which kind of backfired since he went on the worst tangent ever. As you can also see in these images I'm showing you, this is from Robin's own streams. I will be discussing that in a moment, and trust me, when you see what he said about me, maybe then you realise why I'm as angry as I'm about this entirely. So, let me just get this image up, and then you can read it. So yes, there is no mistake here. He did call me a gringo, and yes, he does refer to people that aren't Brazilian as foreigners. Now, before you think I'm making all this up, I will post a link of the video in my description for this. And of course, if good old Robin decides to remove it, know this, Robin, I've backed this up with the original subtitles. I will re-upload it to show you just how racist and condescending you can be to people. Because I don't tolerate that kind of bullshit, and nobody in this community should be tolerating that kind of behaviour. He also mentions putting strikes on my account because of my accusations. Honestly, I'm not going to say a thing. I've set out to prove what is mine and how this artist, the artists at Blue Square Studios work, how to react to being called out by the actual artist. Oh, did I mention they got money for doing this? That's right, people funded these people to make this project using my assets to show what it would look like. Now, how condescending does that look? Anyway, if you've given these people money, you have sadly been scammed, and like I said before, please for the love of God don't support these kind of fans. You know, the ones that are racist and condescending anyway isn't part of the team. And please support the actual artists, the ones who did all the work these jackasses are profiting off. Other words, me and all the other various artists who've contributed over the years, the ones who pulled blood and sweat and poured it all over just to get these assets done. Credit them, follow them, ignore these lot because they are not worth the effort. And just as a bonus, I know I mentioned in my previous rant video a while ago, but when an artist can't even model a set of text correctly and has to make it in parts and calls themselves professional, yeah, professional jackass, maybe.